the interview with Lloydie on the footy show was a brilliant interview. I thought both of you acquitted yourselves superbly. I'm keen to know though, from when one player is let's say targeted by another player and goes down, and his teammates react. If they don't react, do you lose respect for that team? What sort of message are you trying to say when you're getting very physical against one player?
Yeah, it's a funny one because, when the fixture used to come out, there were 2 games as a Hawks player, you immediately went, righto, when are we playing the Cats? Because of, the great rivalry, Easter Monday and all that. But the other game was right. When are we playing Essendon? Because we hated them, and that was instilled in us through Dermy and Dipper and the players of the 80s, and then it sort of ramped back up through the 2000s, where Essendon was so dominant and they just treated Hawthorn with contempt, really, which was fair enough because we were the pretty boys of the competition, and had the tipped hair and. Did the Men for All Seasons calendars and all that. We had a lot of good guys. And we didn't play a really rugged or tough brand of football. And they did. Barnard, Solomon, Johnsons, Wallace, they were tough as they come. So we would always try and look at the Essendon games. And then, obviously the 2004 line in the sand was when the rivalry sort of kicked back off with the spiteful melee. And then after that, the games between Hawthorn and Essendon were extremely heated, and we would go out there trying to target guys, vice versa, and there were some incidents. We got rubbed out. Obviously, the Lloydie coming off the line and getting Brad Sewell was sort of another bit of history in the rivalry, and really it was just you'd lose sort of your mind from a game point of view, and you just go in there wanting to wrestle, fight, do whatever you had to do to defend your player and your club. And I think in modern footy, we will never see that sort of rivalry again because that wasn't manufactured. It was based on history and real hatred. You go to the games now, and they're all smiling and patting each other on the backside and all very friendly. Wasn't that way, even 10 years ago when I played.
Campbell, I'm just interested, mate, to know glory days at Hawthorn, premiership, absolutely magnificent. 2011 comes, you've gone to the Gold Coast Suns. Talk us through the stages on how it all transpired.
Yeah, it was a tough decision. Emotionally, but it was a really easy decision from a football perspective because my role within Hawthorn, being sort of a defender that had a pretty important key position role, sort of had dwindled a little bit. I was playing. Can you hear my son?
It's that time of the afternoon.
Hey, Jess, can you shut Boston up, please? He's a little hurricane. I'm surprised he hasn't come flying down here to tackle me. My role within the side had sort of diminished a little bit. I'd gone from a pretty important defender to pinch hitting up forward. I'd come off the bench, plug a hole here, plug a hole there, and we all had a frustrating 2009 as a club collectively. 2010, I was getting used as a forward more and more to create that defensive pressure, which is an important role, but I found it really hard to get on the end of the footy because we had Buddy and Ruffy and Cyril and all these great forwards, and they just attracted the ball. So if you led or you're in a really good spot, quite often you'd just be overlooked, not on purpose, but
no,
the big boys.
You become the invisible man. Yeah,
a little bit. Yeah. So I was sort of still playing an important role for the club, but I'm thinking, geez, you've got to get the football and contribute. Like you can't just chase and tackle the whole time. Otherwise, I was turning 27 that year, and I was out of contract, and the Gold Coast Suns offer obviously came, and the great thing about Clarko is he's always very transparent. We were having conversations right throughout the course of the season about, where do you see me? What role do I play my best footy? Who's coming through? And we had guys by the name of who haven't played any footy yet, but Bruce, Suckling, Giray, Stratton, all those guys were young kids learning their craft at VFL level, but you could just tell that they were going to be pretty good players, both forward and back. And so Clarko would say, well, mate, you're in our best 22 at the moment, but and you probably will be next year. But going forward, just depending on the rate of the team and the players' development and improvement, I can't guarantee, your spot, which is what you want to sort of hear from a healthy list perspective. But I was sort of thinking, right, I've got a 3-year deal at the Gold Coast Suns. Hawthorn are offering a 2-year deal, but the senior coaches sort of can't guarantee me a game after the first 12 months.
Yeah.
And I knew how ruthless he was in terms of his list management. We've seen that. So in a way, it was like, do you stay at Hawthorn, and you might get another 20, 30 games, and then I'll be sort of 28. Thanks for your service, done. Or do you leave the club you love, go up to the Gold Coast? You got a 3-year deal, which would take me to 30. But then Guy McKenna and the Gold Coast Suns are sort of saying, well, it's still going to be a young list. So if your body's holding up and your form's okay, why wouldn't you get a 4th year or a 5th year? And hopefully by then, these young kids will be playing good footy. Yeah. And who knows, you might be playing finals footy again. You've done the hard yard. So vice captaincy, extra year, more money, opportunity to go down and play down back again. It sort of was a bit of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it was a win-win. Yeah.
I knew when I left Hawthorn that my chances of winning another premiership were done. And had I not won one, I probably wouldn't have made the decision. But I won one in 2008. There was no guarantees that Hawthorn were going to win another in the years that I left as well. So I made the decision to go up there, and it was a lot harder than I expected. You go from a pretty well-structured, disciplined club to a brand spanking new one, having to learn all your new teammates, learn a new game plan, structure, and being one of the few senior guys in a young side where we lost every week. Quite often I found that in terms of criticism, it all got levelled on only 2 or 3 or 4 of us. Yeah. Gary Ablett always played unbelievably, and you're not going to question a player in his 8th game. So it always fell back on Harbrow, Brennan, myself, or Riscatelli. And I would get a little bit frustrated because a good game for me at Hawthorn was 15 possessions, 4 tackles, some spoils, and I did that exact same game for the Gold Coast, and it wasn't being judged the same way. It was like, oh, you need more from the senior guy. They've lost by 10 goals. So in my head, I'm like, well, if I played that game at Hawthorn and we'd won, you played your role and you did it, and you play that role for the Suns, and we were quite often losing by 10 goals. You're not good enough. And I found that a little bit difficult because it went against sort of how I played my footy, just play your role, and all of a sudden you start thinking, well, if I get 20 touches, I've played better, but my man's kicked 3 or 4 goals. Yeah. How does it marry up?
How does it marry up? Yeah.
I ended up going forward anyway in my last 2 years at the Gold Coast and having a bit of an impact as a forward, which I didn't see coming, but it was just a matter of unless I added that string to my bow, the game had sort of evolved to the point where I couldn't keep up with the rotating forward so often. And clubs are pretty smart that, they'd know if you were on a guy that wasn't aerobically great. So they'd drag you up the field and they'd run you back and then you'd swap. And I was constantly getting I wanted to play deep. And they weren't letting me play deep, so I was tonguing it.
It's a long tow rope, that one.
Yeah, it is. So it was interesting times. I mean, I consider those years at the Gold Coast, I learnt so much. And had I just stayed at Hawthorn, you take for granted a lot of the lessons and things that Clarko instilled in you, almost you didn't even realise. And going up there and sort of seeing another club and how it was run and looking from afar at Hawthorn and, just learning about coaching, the game, everything, I still consider it, one of the real most important couple of years of my life in terms of from a learning perspective.